Welcome to part 2 of the Carp Academy 2012. We're at Manor Farm fishing where the guys have carried on exactly where they left off. Devon, enjoying yourself?
Yeah, it's been great. I had 5 fish, it's doing good.
Brilliant. Well, there's still loads more lessons to come, so sit back, put your feet up and enjoy the show. As always, there's loads of fish being caught around the complex, loads of kids playing fish. Now, I've caught Mr. Pete Castle doing a slightly more peculiar lesson, so let's catch up with Pete and find out exactly what he's up to. Pete, this looks like the sort of thing I used to do with my old man in the garden. I used to hold the rod and he used to pretend to be a fish. Why are you doing it?
I think it's really important. The lads, we can teach them how to tie the perfect rig and get them casting accurately, but playing a fish is really important because you often see them when they're bringing them in, the rod tip goes straight, they're obviously too slack a line, then they're bullying them a bit too hard, so just keeping that nice, consistent action in the rod. So
yeah, it's really important because that's a very valid point. I go all around the complex when we're doing Carp Academy and I see so many kids basically playing fish, you know, inadequately really, either too much pressure or not enough.
Yeah.
And this is a really valid lesson. So what are you trying to obviously achieve? You mentioned the bend in the rod.
Yep.
What sort of amount of tension do you think they need?
It obviously depends on the test curve of the rod. But yeah, just a steady tension. You definitely don't want that tip going dead straight. That's obviously when the line is slackening up, and you don't want to be hoops right into the fish because you're bullying them there. It's just that real sort of, you can feel it in the power of a rod, just keeping a steady tension as the fish goes backwards and forwards.
Quality of kit that they all have is gone through the roof. I mean, the rods I had at their age, you know, just no comparison. I mean, they've got great rods, and a lot of them are higher test curves. So let's talk about the higher test curves. You know, and sort of how far down the rod that bend should be. Do you think it's important to have a good amount of pressure?
It depends on the action of the rod. As you say, a lot of people seem to think that they've got to buy great big rods and that's going to catch them loads and loads of fish. These rods here are just 2 3/4, perfect for this kind of lake, and I really think that's important. The action of this rod as well is a through action rod, which takes a little bit of the sort of power out of it.
You can see that, and you know, moving up the sort of height of the rod, you know, when they're playing fish, do you favour them playing them sideways or up? Because I know I like to play fish sideways so they come up in the water, especially in a weedy situation or just when you want to get them in quite quickly. And
snag fishing as well is really, really good. If you get that rod tip low and keep it side on, it seems to stop them dead.
And then down to the actual reel itself, do you? I can see here you're using the clutch. Is that something you favour?
Definitely, yeah. Yeah, especially with big fish fishing. If you're fishing off the reel itself, sometimes when they go powering off, you see people get their knuckles wrapped when the reel spins back round. But and
when's the right point to sort of tweak that clutch? Because if I can, sorry, Jack, I'll just have a feel here. That's you know, it's a bit of tension there, isn't there?
Yeah.
And the other thing I notice is kids often sort of wind when the clutch is going. That's a no-no, isn't it?
Yeah, the most important thing is the rod is the power. The reel is just to get the line on and off the reel. It's not a crank system. You're not cranking the line on, and that's what they're doing when they're reeling through it. The rod is the power, so the whole action of playing the fish is pulling the rod back, and then you're reeling down, reeling the line on, and then pulling the rod back again.
Yeah.
The rod is the power.
Yeah.
And
it's the extension of your arm, isn't it?
Exactly, and that consistency is what keeps that nice action, that you're reeling down with the rod and then you're reeling back. And you see people lose that when they're sort of trying to use the reel as a crank and everything else.
So how has Jack and Jake been with playing their fish?
They've been absolutely brilliant, yeah, they have been good. We had a really good day yesterday. I think they had about a dozen fish between them, so they had plenty of practice there. It's just refining the tactics here, you know.
And no better way than actually doing it with a human test, because there's no fish to come off here, so they can really learn. Well, what a brilliant lesson and what a great way to show kids how to play carp. Well, boys, I do believe this is the first one that I've witnessed on a chod rig. Have you learnt loads?
Yeah, I have.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Good man. This is Riley. Sam, you've been catching them on different rigs, haven't you?
Yeah, I've been having on bottom
baits, yeah?
Yeah, bottom baits, loaded up with the new goo, and that's been doing well off the margins, like with a bit of spot over the top.
All right, great stuff. And Jake, do you think it's important for the kids to sort of learn about different rigs in different situations?
Well, definitely, that's what this is all about. So to start with, we didn't just do the same methods. We did one rod tight to the reeds, like I say, a bit of spotting over the top, and another one completely different contrast, boilies, chod rigs, because this lake fits to the bill like absolutely perfect. So
Brilliant stuff. Well, we're going to look at Jake's chod rig right now. Jacob Wildborough, Sweden. I have in my possession a beautifully tied chod rig by you. It is probably the most in vogue rig of the modern era, would you say?
Oh yes.
Yeah, and why do you think firstly it is so effective and it catches so many people of varying experience levels?
Well, this place now, what we had yesterday was the perfect situation. We had a bay full of carp, and I know from fishing here before it's got like the siltweed all over the place. So with that presentation, I know that casting it out, feeling it down, feeling the drop, you know that that's fishing effectively on most bottoms.
Right, so grab
almost any bottom.
Right, grab that lead.
Yep.
So in effect, the lead penetrates.
Yep.
Yep.
Goes into the weed or onto the bottom.
Yep. And this, no matter what depth, how far that penetrates, that has the ability to slide up the line.
Yep.
And this is what you call the naked choddy. Yeah.
It is indeed, yeah, because normally it used to be fished on lead core.
Yep.
But I prefer it on the naked system because you can be a lot more finesse with it. You can balance it better, so that bait doesn't fall down quickly. It'll just go down really slowly.
Yeah. So you've weighted it. I mean, we'll talk about how you tie it next, but you've actually got it weighted just right, so it sinks almost like, say, half a bait would through water.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it nestles rather than sinks.
Rather than goes down. Like you want the lead to go down, that slides up because it's always a pop up, goes up the line, hits the bottom bead, however high you want it, depending on how high or deep you think that weed is.
So if it's a 5 foot weed bed, you could have in effect this top bead, this no trace system, right up the line.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Right. Let's go on to actually how you tie the system, because I know there's a bit of an art to it to get it all right down to the actual curve. But firstly, let's talk about just the process. So
firstly on the line we have this really effective bead where it slides on, and if you're unlucky enough to like get cut off or you crack off, that bead will break away and that will slide off.
Okay, well, we'll show that. So literally that comes, I presume, on like a little float stop system where you just push it through the loop, pull it up the line.
Slide it all the way up the line.
Yeah, that's two separate components. So that's almost like your tapered big float stop that grips the line lovely. And then you've got this really clever bead with a split in it. So that pulls onto this nicely. But in the event that you have a crack off and there's a break in the line up there, and then you've got a hooked fish on the line, that's able to pull against that. That bead will in effect come off that, and then that will fall away, which will let that be free running and enable a fish in case.
Free fish.
Yeah, exactly. So that's really, really important. Just hooked myself there, which is always good. Okay. And that's always really, really good to wet that as well, isn't it?
Yes, yeah, before you do it. Same with the lead clips, always wet it just before you put it out. So next, we've got the size 11 ring swivel, obviously putting the large eye onto the line so that moves freely all the time. Yeah,
rather than the swivel end. Okay.
Yeah.
So let's move on to the actual mouth trap and the hook link and how you do that.
Yeah, basically, it's a stiff material, so as you pull it off, it's already got a natural curve to it, so you want to use that to your advantage rather than going against it. So you pull a bit off.
Yep.
Obviously not too much because you're not tying up a long hook link, it's obviously going to be short, but always give yourself enough.
Yeah, so say 6 to 7 inches.
Yep. So then cut it off, but then what I do is with the scissors is almost cut it at an angle.
So it goes through the eye
because you've got to go through the eye a few times. You then put the, we're using the choddy hooks, so they've got an out-turned eye. Thread that through and then do a knotless knot about 7-8 times.
Yep.
Back down through the eye, and then with a puller tool, just pulling it down just to set the knot.
Okay.
And then with the tag end that's coming out of the hook, putting a micro rig ring on.
Okay, and that's what the bait's then tied to as well, I presume. Yeah.
So that goes back through with a lighter. You just blob it off to stop it coming, and that's when you make the D effect where the hook bait can move up and down freely on that D. And
I presume you've used like a little spiky system, like a chodit tool or something, to make that D a nice gap there, make it smooth. And
because if you use like a baiting needle, it can kind of
kink it,
like zigzag almost. So with that chodit tool, it's nice and smooth. You can bend it round.
Right, and then you've got a loop there, which gives it extra movement, doesn't it? So how do you make the loop?
With the crimping tool, so basically it goes round and through the swivel and then back through the crimp, and then it's so easy where you can make them short and even smaller than that if you wish.
You can pull them right down with the crimp because there's no knot, is there?
Yeah, so with the knot it's hard to gauge how tall you want your chods. Yeah. With that you can get it exactly right every single time,
Okay, great stuff. So, and then finally you've got the bottom bead, which comes on that same system as that system at the top.
Yep.
And then literally a small lead, I presume the smallest lead you can get away
the
with?
smallest, yeah, because like fishing close in, there's fish there, so obviously don't want too much disturbance. And also, when you're playing a fish, you think that bead slides down. If you've got a 4 ounce lead there, hitting him in the face, obviously, that's not what you want.
Could affect your hook hold.
So small lead you can get away with.
Great stuff. Well, there you go. A masterclass in chods by Jake Wildball. This year's Carp Academy has seen us bring some new blood into the game, especially with big fish anglers. Jim Wilson, CID by trade, big fish angler by hobby. Jim, you've got a little rig here that you've been catching quite a few big uns on, haven't you? So
yeah, certainly have. The multi-rig, it's become a firm favourite. I've used it for 5 or 6 years now. Been lucky enough to catch both my UK personal bests on it, and I've been able to adapt it to use it in so many different situations, different types of lake bottoms, and different conditions really, and different baiting patterns as well, more importantly.
Brilliant. That is, you know, the way it's called the multi-rig.
Yeah, kind of suits it really well, to be honest.
And it's very versatile. So the one we've got here, you've got it as a nice sort of big pop-up, haven't you?
Yep.
So let's firstly talk about how you set it up, because I know it's actually very simple to do, isn't it?
It is. It's really simple. We start with around sort of 12 to 15 inches of end trap soft.
Yep.
Nice simple overhand loops in each end. The first loop will be dependent on the size of the pop-up, the height of the pop-up I want to fish. So it'll be anywhere between sort of 1.5 to 2.5 inches as a general rule.
Okay.
In this instance, it's about
it's just about an inch and a bit.
So I can fish it really low or obviously adjust it right up. The second loop at the other end is obviously for connecting via a quick link to my leader choice and my lead system.
So that bit just clips on nice and
just
easy.
for clipping on.
So you've made the big loop.
Yep.
Yep. And then I can notice you've got the ring on. So what's the next stage once you've made the loop?
Make the big loop and then I break the coating below that overhand loop.
Right, so it's here.
Yeah, that gives you a hinge in the rig so that when you've got your putty point, obviously for anchoring the pop-up, you've got the degree of flexibility that allows the hook to spin
and
or
sit
straight basically. And it gives it that flexibility as well. So when it's wafting around on the bottom, it's not getting messed up and not getting snarled up.
Yeah, if you had solid coating, I suppose it could sometimes sit funny.
You'd sit at the wrong angle and it wouldn't leave, it kind of devalue the whole point of having the outturned eye on the choddy hook, for example, because it would lose the gape of the rig completely.
Got you.
So obviously we break the coating, and then on the larger loop, the double over section goes through the eye of the hook, so that you slide the hook down towards that knot, and then slide on a rig ring.
Okay.
And then the top end of the loop goes back over the point, so that it comes on the inside of the bend and sits on the shank.
Brilliant.
So that you create a D-rig,
Yep.
In essence. But in my opinion, it gives you more flexibility because it's not a fixed D. It means the bait can go away from the hook and the gape. And because on the D there, that allows the whole lot to slide. Sorry.
Yeah, so
that slides completely, taking the bait out of the way, and it means that the D and the material is all down on the eye. So you've not got it jamming in the way.
Yeah, and obviously the whole lot can actually slide down during a fight, and it's all hook.
Yep.
And nothing else. So in theory, mate, it's so easy. You can have one hook link, and literally, once that hook's been trashed.
Yeah, just change the hook link. Just change the hook. You don't. If the hook link's still in good condition and it's still suitable for the situation you're fishing in or the spot you're fishing on, you can change it around. I mean, for example, on that one, it's a cork ball fish meal pop-up with a size 6 choddy. If I'm going down to like a proprietary pop-up mix and an IVIS single, like a little 12mm that I want to cast that's showing fish, take the size 6 off, whack a size 8 on, change it round and away you go and put a single at showing fish.
Brilliant. So they save on hook link, and I suppose if the hook link's, you know, being a little bit kinked, a little steam over the kettle.
Yeah, a little steam, straighten it out. Even between two puller tools, just give it a nice little tug, straighten it out, and away you go. Reset your putty, and off you go again.
Great. And talking of putty, we had a little chat off camera about how you like the pop up to sink.
We did, yeah.
How much putty do you put on, and how do you like that hook bait to sink?
What I like to do is initially I'll make it so it's obviously overweighted, and I'll get a spare bucket with a bit of lake water in, and I'll balance it. I'll peel bits away because I want it to fall slowly. I want it to be
away
at the
from the
full
lead
stretch
system,
of the boom.
like that. Yep.
Yeah, I want that full boom to be away from the lead. That's just obviously a confidence thing. I think if it settles and it's slowly balanced, I think that bait's going to raise quicker up as well when a fish is in feeding, and I think it's going to become more active in the swim as well. So if a fish starts feeding, that bait being well balanced is obviously going to react quicker, and he's going to be up and off the bottom quicker towards the mouth. So
Brilliant stuff. Well, have a look at that. A really, really simple big fish rig that is catching big uns all across the land. Well, boys, what a team effort this was. Sam, your first one, what was the battle like?
Oh, hard scrapping, took a fair good 10 minutes to get in.
Yeah, pulled your arm off. Excellent. Jim, I know you really wanted young Sam to bag one, didn't you?
Yeah, definitely. He's worked hard, bless him, and he's picked up a lot, so hopefully it'll stand him in good stead.
Great stuff. Well, we've seen Jim Wilson's rig. Now we're going to look at Mr. Dan Bruton on my right. He's got an equally easy to tie rig, but just as devastating. Dan, when you first showed me this rig, I thought you were having a little wind-up because, like big fish anglers, you sort of think they're going to have something really complicated, and I know you catch so many big carp from some really pressured big pits, but you really like this rig, don't you?
Well, you're not the first person to say that. A lot of people say, look, you know, there's got to be something more that you're doing, but it really is as simple as this. It's easy to tie. It kicks the hook off at such an angle. It's like a claw. It's just a brilliant hooking potential.
Rig
on a great simple setup that's invisible.
Yeah, I mean,
it's perfect.
Yeah, the fluorocarbon, that's the first point. That's a fluorocarbon hooklink, and obviously it has a very similar light refraction level to water, so it basically disappears. And we have seen that on underwater footage. That material really does disappear.
They just don't know it's there.
Yeah. So let's talk about how you tie it first. So overhand loop in the end.
On the end of on the swivel, just a simple loop. Just it gives it that movement. I like to fish it with a running rig setup if I can, just because it gives it that extra movement when they're sort of sucking, blowing. Comes into literally a simple knotless knot, and I keep the stiffness in the hair, just because it's that difficult for the fish to actually blow it back out again.
Really? So you think as that goes in, because you've got that sort of rigidity in the actual hair, it keeps everything in position. It can't come back out.
Well, it's pushing the point of the hook back down when they're trying to do it. It's coming like this, and it just pops it straight into the bottom lip.
Yep.
And as soon as they feel that, obviously they're going to move off. Bang.
Panic.
It's in.
Yeah. Now I can really see why it works so well the way you've explained it. Now let's move on to the actual sort of lake beds that you use it on, and also talk about the topper. Is that something you always do, a little fake bit of plastic?
I think the topper is just that little bit of colour, for that bit of visual. It can sometimes buy you a really quick bite. I fish short sessions. I need to maximise my time. Having that little bit of visual can sometimes just get you that extra little bite, when otherwise, just a simple boilie may not,
Needle in a haystack scenario.
Let's just make it stand out a little bit more,
Yeah, got you.
Yeah.
And then onto the actual lake bed that you'd use this on. Is this one that you'd cast out in weed, or is this something you favour on clear bottoms?
This is something I favour on a clear bottom, whether it's a clear lake or next to a hole in the weed, but I like it to be clean to get the maximum out of the rig. You don't want anything to mask it. I need it to work as it sits like that.
Have a look at that. It's heavy, isn't it?
Yeah.
Ollie, a new PB. How big was it?
22.3.
Excellent stuff. You must be ecstatic.
Yeah.
Yeah? You going to smile for us?
Yeah.
Now, Ollie the tutor, you have really, really worked hard with these boys, haven't you? What was this one caught on?
Right, well, about sort of half an hour ago or so, we started seeing them turn up. It's been a bit quiet this morning. As I say, about half hour ago, they started turning up. We see them on the surface. We're just below the surface cruising. We're seeing sort of 3 or 4 or 5 fish at once. So we thought, right, we've got to get a zig rig out there. So I was tied up the zig nice and quickly, whacked it out there. It was only about, 25 minutes, half an hour. and it was away. Ripper.
Brilliant. And what was it, a little bit of foam?
Just a little bit of white foam, yeah.
And how far under the surface?
We were about sort of 6 inches under the surface in about sort of 5 foot of water, and had a sort of 4.5 foot hook link.
Amazing stuff. Well, as we enter the final evening of Carp Academy 2012, another PB has been made.
This is what Carp Academy is all about. Personal best common, look at that. 22 pounds of stunning, stunning common carp. Or was it, no, 21 and a half, wasn't it? 21 and a half. Putting all the stuff he's learned into really good practice. I'm sure he will be doing this on these local lakes time and time again. Let's get some shots.
Well, 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 check out this absolute beauty. Elliot, you weren't the captain, but you were the tutor. How big is it?
£27 1 ounce, wasn't it? Was it two? £27 1 ounce.
27 1.
Yeah.
Awesome. Harry, tell us how you caught it.
Found a nice silty area in the middle of a bit of siltweed with my marker. Spotted over it tight and then flicked a couple of loose boilies around it wide. Topped it off with a bit of pop-up.
Yeah.
And then that was it, really.
Absolutely brilliant. Well, what a stunning carp. Probably a 30-pounder when it's full of spawn, but 27 and well deserved. Well, there you go. The last fish that you're going to see on this year's Carp Academy. It's been an absolute belter. It's time for the graduation. Well, there you go. It's done for another year. So many lessons taught, PBs broken, loads of happy faces. Carp Academy 2012, done.